Okay, cool. Hello, Jackie. How are you today?
I'm all right, thank you. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, like we said earlier on, we don't get to do this so often any longer, and it's just very bad about just bad, 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 bad. We need
Just
to stop
life
that.
happens, doesn't it?
Yeah. Jackie, I've got a very interesting question that was asked to me last night because
Okay.
um I was I was going down this road of this topic that I wanted to discuss, and
Yeah.
somebody asked me this question last night. And when I got that question, I thought, brilliant, let's change everything. This is what we're talking about. The
Okay.
question that was asked was, can an introvert change into an extrovert?
Well, that's an interesting question.
Yeah. And my response immediately was, yes, of course they can. And she said to me, okay, how? And I'm like, I shall answer this question today during this video
Oh.
session. So
So come
here
on
we
then.
are.
Let's
we
let's talk about
we
how.
well, the first thing I asked this client of mine, and I said to her, okay, first tell me, why do you want to change
Yeah.
from being an introvert to an extrovert? Because a lot of the times when people they see somebody with a big mouth, hello, that can talk, and they always think, I can never do that.
Yeah.
I'm too shy to do that. Or some of them will see me and they're sitting in a mundane position and they go, hey, I can do that. So when somebody says to me they want to change from being an introvert to an extrovert, I always ask, why do you want to change?
Yeah.
Because I think what has happened is that there is this stigma attached to being an introvert or an extrovert. It's some
Be
people,
too quiet or too loud.
yeah. And the introverts are, you know, there's this thing that I'm going to talk, the introverts, or sometimes it's just something that somebody's going through.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that they are introverts. I mean, you know about my whole incident that I've been going through these past few months, and I went quiet.
Yeah.
That's why we haven't had a lot of videos, because I just went quiet. I had nothing to say. I couldn't think of something to say. My headspace was completely wrong. So you can then, based on the characteristics of an introvert, say, I became an introvert
Yeah.
purely because I wasn't speaking out.
Yeah.
So when somebody says to me, how can you change from being an introvert to an extrovert? I say, why? Why do you want to change? And that's always the first thing that I answer them. And if they come and say to me, yeah, but they are extremely shy, then I'll go, okay,
Yeah.
we can work on that. Why are you shy? Because also a lot of the time when somebody says to you they're quite shy in a certain group or when they meet certain people, you can find out why. Now, I know, for instance, that I've got a group of friends on Facebook. If I have to meet them face to face, I am going to be the best introvert ever. Because you know what? They are models. Some of them are my age, and they are participants in the Mrs. Globe international competitions. They do Mrs. South Africa, ours now, Mrs. South Africa competitions. So they are my age women that are these tall, leggy, sexy individuals. So if you have to take me, who's short and dumpy, and you put me in that environment, I'm going to go,
Yeah. Because it becomes that like inferior complex, doesn't it? That lack
yes,
of confidence in that environment.
yes, yes. So in that environment, I will become an introvert because I say I'm short and I'm kind of round. I'm definitely not tall and leggy. Ain't going to work. I can't stretch myself.
Join the club.
So, and again, that's why I ask people, why do you want to become more extrovert? And if it is purely because they are shy, there's nothing wrong with being shy.
Yeah.
So what I then did is, of course, I went and I asked Uncle Google to give me the synonyms for an introvert. And yes, it means it's somebody that is shy, but some interesting synonyms for this now. It's the lone wolf,
Mm.
somebody that prefers to be in solitary. So, you know, they're quite happy with
In
their own conversation.
Yeah.
A maverick. Now, when I saw maverick, I thought, hold on, a maverick. I would never have thought that maverick can be a synonym for introvert, because a maverick is an independent-minded person.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I thought, that is very interesting.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of synonyms, but the next one also got me. It's called a nonconformist.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
somebody that's
that,
an introvert is actually a nonconformist. So you don't conform to what the world is doing or
don't
to what
follow
the
the
world is
crowd.
expecting.
Yeah.
And now people want to call you an introvert because you don't follow the crowd. You get labeled as an introvert. So again, why would you want to change from being an introvert to an extrovert? Because there is such, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you if you are an introvert. You are happy with your own conversation. I think that says quite a lot about you if you can be in your own space
Yeah. I feel
and be
happy.
happy and
Yeah.
feel happy about that. So when I read all these synonyms, I thought, now I'm even going to be I'm going to build myself a bigger soapbox now. When somebody says, how can I change from being an introvert to an extrovert? I'm going, why do you want to do that? Don't do that.
Yeah.
If, however, you are in a job environment and you feel that you need to be more outspoken,
Yeah, where it's
then it's not
interfering with your life then, isn't it? That's the
correct.
difference.
But also, then it's not a thing of let's go from introvert to extrovert. Then it's a thing of then let's look at how to assertively get your point across.
Yeah.
You don't have to change being this introvert person. You can just do things more assertively.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel so strongly about this. Yes, we can change. Yes, you can put steps in place. Yes, we can, you know, I can coach you through it so you can become more talkative. You can have more things to say. I can help you to gain confidence and things like that. So every time, no matter how much I looked at this whole topic of how to change from an introvert to an extrovert, it keeps on coming up. But why do you want to change? There's nothing wrong with being an introvert. And you know that this whole introversion and extroversion thing was Carl Jung, the psychologist. He started this whole thing off in the 1960s. And somebody that's an introvert is only somebody that's less of an extrovert. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Different personalities, isn't it? And it's just, but when it affects your work life, then that's where we, like you talked about earlier, that's where we need to make those changes because it's actually limiting us. So that's where it's necessary to change.
Yes, you know, and again, but it doesn't mean that you've got to change your entire life, your entire outlook on life, nothing. It's just for that environment.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been labeled as the extrovert because I can get up and I can talk and no problem whatsoever. But there was a time when I became introvert. So people can go from being an extrovert to an introvert. And the same can happen from being an introvert to becoming an extrovert. Now, the time when I became introvert was when I was in that abusive relationship all those years ago.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you got all those, I think in the, you know, lots of problems or whatever they are, it can make you just want to hide away from people, can't it? And then you go in from that. Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah, because I mean, I was not allowed to talk to anybody. I was not allowed to laugh at people's jokes and all of that. So you become very quiet and you focus here. Even when you're sitting in a group of people, you focus on yourself, or you focus only on, like I had to focus only on him at the time, because if I looked at anybody else, I was being accused of wanting to have an affair and you know, nonsense like that. So you then focus on the person. So you become quiet, you become introverted. And it took me quite a while to get out of it afterwards, because I had to realize afterwards that, hang on, I am allowed to tell a joke. Hold on, I am allowed to laugh at somebody else's jokes. So, and slowly but surely, I changed out of that again. But let's say we do have somebody that is an introvert and they would like to be more outgoing. Go sit down and ask yourself, what is it that is making you feel you can't talk to other people? I can throw books at you and tell you what it is, but you as a person got to decide, oh, you know what, actually, I don't think I've got anything to say because I don't have an education, type of thing.
Yeah.
Then I would say go read and see what is in the current. I actually wouldn't say go read and go watch the current news because there's so much lies going on. But find interesting topics, read up on the topics. So when somebody does talk to you, or you can, ask them, what books have they recently read? Talk about something that you are comfortable with and take small steps. That's a small thing that you can do. If I know at one stage I was traveling quite a bit, and I smiled because everybody would sit with their phones and send messages. So you can sit at the airport and you can look up and down like this, and everybody's sitting on their phones. Nobody's talking to anybody. And I thought the one day, you know what, it's quite bad because you travel with all these different people, all these different personalities. Surely you can learn so much from these people. And the one day I picked up a conversation, there was another traveler, and they had a book with them. And I said, I have never read any of, that particular author's books. Tell me about it. And a conversation started. Now, whether that person was an introvert or an extrovert, I cannot tell you, but I stepped out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
After I went through my period where I had to stay quiet. So I stepped out because that to me, because it happened over a 10, 12-year period, I became used to being quiet. So when I started traveling again, and of course I married Graham in that time as well. So and he is quite verbal. So that also helped me to step up again and start talking again. But I couldn't talk to other people because of what I've just been through. And that's what I then used to start a conversation. I would see somebody with a book and go, right, tell me about this author. Or if it's somebody that I know, I would say, have you read this book? So I would find a common denominator almost, and you start talking to them and just take it slow.
Yeah. That reminds me of
slow.
Stepping stones, because taking those tiny stepping stones to achieve your goal.
Yes.
And we often talk about habits as well, don't we? And if you've got a habit and you want to change it, then you have to, even if it's one step and you do it repeatedly.
Correct.
Gradually the next step becomes easier and you keep going.
Correct.
And actually you're changing yourself with whatever that may be. So starting with something like, reading, something that a lot of people do, especially when they're in an airport, is a great way to start a conversation.
Yeah.
The more you do it, the easier it becomes.
It does. And that's why I say it's not an overnight process, but you can become more comfortable. Now, let's take my other example. For instance, if I've got to go meet these friends of mine that's all these leggy blondes and all participate in the Mrs. World competition. I can't change anything about my height. But I can change something about my weight. And the minute I'm going to change that, I will feel better about myself. And then I will walk up to them, even if I am short. I will walk up to them and have a good conversation then. Yeah. So if it is, so again, when you want to change from being an introvert to an extrovert, first check which area is it that you are being introverted about.
Yeah.
And then take small steps and change it from there. And again, I have to say, there's nothing wrong with being an introvert. Nothing. My youngest son was rather reserved at one stage. And all of a sudden, one day, he found his voice. And it just happened for him. Nobody said to him, you've got to do this, or you've got to be more like this. He just stepped out of it one day. He had a point. He could get his point across, and everything just fell into place for him. And that's it.
I was thinking what came to mind for me was when you've got a passion or something that you really love, then that can help you to come out of it. So finding that passion or whatever it is, and then use that also as a way of,
correct,
something to talk about, something to get, something about,
yeah.
you can become the expert in that. That also helps you
Yeah.
to build up your confidence, doesn't it, and to come out of that.
Correct,
That's
correct.
an
And
interesting
because
subject.
even like you've just said now, when I left the abusive relationship, it happened in that time that I then joined Mercedes-Benz, and I was involved in this project where we had to implement the software. And I became a specialist in that software. And that actually boosted me, that when I sit in a boardroom having a meeting and somebody would say something about the software, I would go, no, actually, it's not because of. And you just go and you just answer, because I was a specialist. And so it's so right that when you have something that you are passionate about, it will help you. So if you are in a job environment and if you feel you can only do your job better if you become an extrovert, then again, I'm going to say, first look and see, why is it that you think you can only do your job if you are an extrovert? Why do you think that is? And because again, the world labels people. And if you want to find something bad about being an introvert, you're going to find it on the internet.
Yeah.
Somebody out there was feeling blue and glum, and they wrote a piece on how bad it is to be an introvert, and you're going to find it, and you're going to read it, and it's going to, it's going to sit here in your on the side. It's going to tap you like this the entire time, and it's going to niggle away at you. So have a look. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being an introvert, because, like I said, these synonyms. When I saw Maverick, I'm like, no ways. I would never have tagged that to an introvert.
And I was thinking, when you said about somebody who doesn't follow the norm, doesn't mean to say that their lifestyle's wrong necessarily.
No.
And their ideas are wrong. It's just, it's not the same as everybody else's. So you've got a different viewpoint. But there are others that will have that same viewpoint, and finding that passion, that, and becoming that person that's not introverted. Is possible, isn't it? That's been an interesting discussion today.
Yes, because people, whenever they hear you and they see that you're passionate about something, and they will go, yeah, I can't be like that because I'm not an extrovert.
Yeah.
Nonconformist is a synonym for an introvert.
So that's something new we've learned today, Leonie. Wow. So I look forward to next week's discussion to see what we end up
with. I better go. Well, everybody that's watching, send us a question, and maybe we can work that into our next video as well, to talk about, to answer somebody's question for them.
Would be really good, wouldn't it? Yeah, that would be fantastic. Whatever it may be, whatever subject, we'll find you an answer.
Yes.
Oh, it's been lovely chatting to you today, Leonie.
Awesome. Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you.